Where are you getting all this money, Spyro? It's not just lying around on the ground, is it? Is it?
Spyro Year of the Dragon, or as I prefer to call it, Spyro 3 Year of the Dragon, came out in 2000, the Year of the Dragon. This was Insomniac Games' final entry in their first ever franchise, and the reason they gave for walking away from it was that they had no more ideas. Well, I guess that's because they exhausted all of them here. This game is packed with content and introduces seemingly as many new gameplay styles as possible. Are they all successful? Let's get into it. From the beginning, it's pretty clear that this game is regressing big time in terms of story. The opening cutscene shows us a grand larceny of dragon eggs, and okay, that's a fine enough premise. Plus, it's cool to see the dragon elders from the first game again. The theft is perpetrated by an unnamed creature simply referred to as the Sorceress. Well, that's lame. She's aided by her lackey Bianca and Rhinoc henchmen. The Sorceress never interacts with Spyro at any point throughout the game, and barely gets any sort of backstory, much like Gnasty Gnorc in the first game. It's almost to the point that I would call her a non-character like Gnasty, which is a real shame coming off a villain as memorable as Ripto. And the Rhinocs are much like Gnorcs in that they populate nearly every level the game has to offer, which is a huge bore. Insomniac are clearly capable of coming up with cool and creative enemies on the occasion that they do go outside the box. Just look at these things from Crystal Islands. But for the most part, levels are filled with the same Rhinocs, copied and pasted, just with different attire and weapons. Overall, I think the enemies were handled much better in Spyro 2 than in its predecessor and successor. And as far as Bianca is concerned, I'm not going to waste any time talking about her or her character arc. I'm just going to say that it is cliché and predictable, and leave it at that. As you probably already know, or could guess, it's up to Spyro to go after the stolen eggs, which have been hauled off to the Forgotten Worlds, a series of realms the dragons were chased out of 1,000 years ago. And when it comes to the core gameplay, what can I say? The controls for our favorite purple dragon are as tight and refined as they have ever been. The environments we get to explore are just as imaginative as they were in the first two games, and the graphics are some of the very best, if not the absolute best, to be found on the PlayStation. The presentation, however, is not quite as good as the previous entry in the series. That one had these cute little cutscenes that bookended each level. Why were those not included here? Even though they were short, they didn't overstay their welcome. They were usually funny, and they always added to the world building and the mini plot of each individual world. They weren't essential parts of the game, but it's still bizarre that they were ditched. Another bit of weirdness is the soundtrack. It's once again composed by Stuart Copeland, and it is a drastic departure from his previous work for the series. So naturally, most fans consider it to either be the best of the three or the worst. For me, it's definitely the worst, but I still enjoy it. I'm no music critic, so I'm having trouble finding the words to describe it, but it's much more understated and minimalistic than its predecessors, with nowhere near the amount of bombastic sounds that fans had grown accustomed to. That being said, it definitely does retain that classic Spyro feeling. The level design in Spyro 3 is sort of like if you mixed the open-ended approach of the first game with the linearity of Spyro 2. They're not as open as they were in the first, but fortunately it does take the circular routes found in some of those levels and apply them to most of the ones found here. There's typically some sort of barrier at the end of each one that comes down once you reach it and leads you back to the beginning. That makes it easy to quickly get wherever you need to go to collect the remainder of the gems and eggs. One of the disappointing things about Spyro 2, for me, was that nearly every orb, the main collectible in that installment of the series, was earned through doing a challenge or mission. There weren't very many hidden ones to hunt for and find. I really missed searching all over the first game for those crystallized dragons. Thankfully, Spyro 3 throws in loads of hidden eggs that require either exploration or platforming to find. That's not to say that there are no NPC challenges in this game. Far from it. They really go hog wild with them here, and unfortunately, it falls into traps that the second game did not. In Spyro 2, there were lots of different gameplay styles in these challenges, but not so many that the devs were overwhelmed with too many control schemes and not enough time to refine them all. Plenty of Spyro 3 challenges are super fun, and plenty are absolutely brutal. There's nowhere near as many power-up missions as in Spyro 2, and that sucks. I liked them. The egg thieves from the first game are back with a vengeance. I actually really enjoy these parts. My favorites, much like in the second installment, are the puzzles, and I again wish that they had included more. Despite being a kid's game, they're still fun to figure out. The timed challenges and collection quests are usually okay, some missions test your reflexes and that's fun, but then come the ones in vehicles, which are just misery. They control like absolute shit, and they're just boring. Isn't this supposed to be a platformer? Why am I being stuffed into vehicles? But Insomniac isn't done yet. They have even more control schemes to cram into this game in the form of multiple playable characters. Avalar's most cutthroat capitalist has made his way into these forgotten worlds to continue to rob Spyro blind, and while he still has doors to open for you and stuff like that, the main thing he's selling this time is caged animals. That's right, Moneybags is trafficking anthropomorphic animals for the sorceress. Does that make him half of a human trafficker? But I digress. The sorceress and Bianca are just noise. These 4 unlockable characters are the main new faces the game has to offer, and they're kinda just there. No real backstory or explanations of how they got to where they are besides the odd throwaway line. They are, however, cool for the most part, at least in terms of their designs and personalities. Sheila is a charming Australian stereotype who has entertaining antics with mountain goats.
Now, how many times have I told you not to tease that moose?
It was Billy's idea. Yeah.
Sergeant Bird is a flying penguin soldier with rocket launchers on his shoulders. That's certainly new, if nothing else. Bentley is the classic big and strong but also super intelligent character, as cliche as it gets. This trope has been done to death. Beast from the X-Men as well as countless others, but still, he at least has some funny banter with his brother. And finally, there is Agent 9, a lab monkey who totes a gun and... I don't know, I'm not a doctor, so I can't diagnose him.
Good answer, isn't he? Not much stamina, though. Too bad I had a lot more ammo left.
Each of these characters has their own level that you unlock after paying to set them free, and several mini-levels throughout the game. That's how Spyro 3 implements backtracking. Freeing them opens up new parts of previous levels that you'll have to return to if you want to get every egg and every gem. Thankfully, this is handled much better than in Spyro 2, where every level resets itself upon re-entering it. Here, it's very easy to return to a level and get exactly where you need to go quickly, because the end-of-level barriers don't go back up, and whirlwinds and other means of transportation don't disappear. I like the idea of all of these new characters, but they control badly for the most part. Not as badly as the vehicles, though. Sheila is mostly fine. She's my favorite of the 4, but her double jump is extremely floaty. It's really the only thing that drags down her level, Sheila's Alp, which is actually quite good overall. Her reappearances include a tower scaling mission, which sucks because it relies on the floaty double jump, a mission where you destroy turrets to aid racist seals
You got a lot of talent for someone so purple.
in their efforts to blow up a Rhinoc fortress. This mission also sucks because, again, it relies on the double jump. An utterly soul-crushing escort mission, which is like the Spyro 2 Alchemist mission on steroids. And finally, a 2D side-scroller, which is easily the most fun of the bunch. Every Sheila mission should have been regular 3D platforming and collecting like her main level, or a side-scroller, nothing else. Sergeant Bird is just sad. His flight controls are the floatiest of the floaty, as in worse than Kazooie, and his level, Sergeant Bird's base, is a badly designed mess that is completely indoors. Yes, you heard that right, the only flying character of the bunch gets an indoor level. Sergeant Bird is also the only side character who actually gets to explore one of Spyro's levels instead of being relegated to his own areas. It's a shame he only does it once, a shame that Sheila never gets to, and a shame that it's for a mission copied and pasted directly from Spyro 2. The redeeming qualities are that there are gems and hidden eggs in this level that can't be found by Spyro, so needing to bring out Sergeant Byrd for 100% completion adds another level to the exploration. But that just makes it even more baffling. Why was this only done once? And Sergeant Byrd's other 2 appearances? Both indoors. Bentley's controls are fine from a technical standpoint, but because he's the typical big and slow character that's found in so many games, and because the design of his level, Bentley's Outpost, is so basic, he's boring to play as, and the pace slows down to that of a snail anytime he's used. He comes back to scale a mountain, which is dull and tedious, like going up a parking garage ramp, and then again to do this annoying whack-a-mole nonsense and compete in a boxing match, which is, not fun. But it does include a fun fact. After beating it, you can plug in a second controller and 1v1 with a friend. That is, if you're lucky enough to have a friend who would be willing to play Bentley's Yeti boxing with you. It is interesting though, because it's the only multiplayer segment to be found in the entire trilogy. That leaves us with Agent 9. Imagine playing Ratchet and Clank, but without a melee attack and without dual analog. That is Agent 9. He can only shoot directly in front of him. In order to aim, you have to do this clumsy strafe maneuver, and boy howdy is it ever a chore. This is bad, and the devs knew it was bad, because all of his other appearances are for missions that control nothing like it. One is a very irritating Doom knockoff that gave me motion sickness. Another is a Robotron-inspired mission that is actually very fun. And then there's a rail shooter, which is okay, I guess. Honestly, it's mind-blowing to me that they didn't go with the Robotron approach or rail shooter approach for everything involving this character, or just not include him. But hey, I did enjoy seeing the Professor again. I realize I'm sounding overly negative here, so I need to stress a couple of things. The core Spyro gameplay, where you're running around exploring creative and colorful worlds, collecting gems and eggs, and charging and flaming enemies, which is most of the game, is as good or better than it's ever been. And I really do appreciate that they tried to add new things instead of just make the same game over and over again, and that they tried to give the consumer more bang for their buck by packing in plenty of content, easily the most of the trilogy. It just feels to me like they were throwing random things at the wall to see what stuck, especially with these Super Mario 64 style slides that control like shit and feature the additional pain in the ass of trying to collect every gem when you're going too fast for Sparks to get them all and can't slow down. Speaking of Sparks, his levels are really good. Yeah, there are 4 top-down shooter levels where you play as Sparks. They actually work and are really challenging, in a good way, especially the final one. And you get to earn new abilities by completing each of them, most notably a gem pointer that's really nice for finding those last elusive gems if you happen to be missing a couple. The gem pointer is also present throughout all of Spyro 2, but hardly anybody knows about it because none of the in-game tutorials cover it. In both games, you use it by holding down all 4 shoulder buttons. One addition that I am shocked to say that I enjoy is the skateboarding. You'd think that that would be a major disaster, but it's actually cool, both the skate park challenges and the races. It may seem like an odd thing to shoehorn into a game like this, and it is, but you have to put yourself into the time period. The Tony Hawk series was absolutely massive at the time, and skateboarding as a whole was undergoing a big resurgence in popularity, so much so that it was able to sneak its way into games that it had nothing to do with. This is easily the most difficult game in the trilogy, and that's arguably a good thing since Spyro 2 could definitely be considered too easy. But the problem is that the difficulty doesn't just come from the genuine challenge of tough enemies, but also because of crappy controls in most of the new aspects of the game, but especially the vehicles. The challenge of exploring every nook and cranny of every level for hidden areas and collectibles still peaked with the original, but Spyro 3 is still multiple steps above Spyro 2 in that department. Another thing that drags the game down a bit, particularly in the beginning, is excessive tutorials. I don't want to be stopped dead in my tracks when I'm just trying to play the game, and I definitely don't want the same thing explained to me multiple times in the same level. It makes everything feel a bit dumbed down, and even includes instructions on the order to complete the speedways in. Speaking of the speedways, they've got more content added to them as well, and predictably, some of it works, like the races, but then there's the hunter segments, because 6 playable characters wasn't enough. And they're all vehicle missions. Great! Except for one rail shooter. So I haven't even mentioned the boss fights yet, and that's probably because they're completely unmemorable. Unlike in the previous game where you fight Crush and Gulp, the lackeys that follow Ripto around throughout the game, before getting to fight Ripto himself at the end, the Sorceress just hastily churns out boss after boss like fast food hamburgers in cutscenes that take place directly before each of the fights. It reminds me of doing a homework assignment right before class begins. These characters are exactly like the bosses in the first game, in that they are well designed and cool looking, but have no development whatsoever, or even any dialogue, and they don't advance the story in any way. They're there to get killed by Spyro, and that's it. Why couldn't Bianca have been one of the bosses? I mean, obviously for story purposes you can't kill her off, but it would have been legitimately interesting to watch her try to prove herself to the Sorceress at some point in the game, and it could have really strengthened her arc. What a missed opportunity. For the first thing you fight, you have to dodge his attacks and butt him into lava. Average stuff. And the other two resemble the fights with Crush and Gulp, as you're aided with the use of weapons. I had fun with all of these bosses, even though the fights lack any sort of meaning. When you finally get to the Sorceress at the end, there is no excitement like there is for the showdown with Ripto. And there's not even a cutscene where Spyro and the Sorceress confront one another. The fight itself is similar to the previous couple, except you're using cannons and vehicles instead of regular power-ups, making it less fun. If it's going to be this similar to the other boss fights in the game, you might as well just make it the same. At least the controls would be tighter. After defeating the final boss and finding every collectible, you get a bonus level, like in the previous 2 games, creatively named the Super Bonus Round. It's like a combination of Nasty's loot in the first game, with its ridiculous amounts of treasure to collect and thieves to chase, and the minigame focused Dragon Shores from the second. Some parts of it are really fun, and others really suck. Are you noticing a pattern here? The skateboard race is nearly impossible, and you really have to play it to understand how little room for error there is. And once you complete all of that stuff, another boss fight is in order, because, spoiler alert, the Sorceress survived. This version of the fight is entirely on vehicle, because fuck you. The real Super Bonus Round is finally getting to kick Moneybags' ass. Despite any gripes I may have today, I loved this game as a kid, and I do hold on to a lot of fond memories regarding it. Want to know how much of a wuss I was as a 6-year-old? I was afraid of this whale. Seriously. My favorite levels are definitely Charmed Ridge and Crystal Islands, because they really remind me of levels from the first game, from the overall design to the enemies, theming, and color palette. And just like the previous games, the little things about Spyro 3 are the things that I really love. The fireflies in Spooky Swamp who speak exclusively in haiku, the ringed planet in the sky in Enchanted Towers, talking to characters a second time to see what additional dialogue they might have.
I haven't made such easy money since the Sorceress bought that mayonnaise for sunscreen.
And flaming those firework-wielding Rhinox and watching them blast off in the land of pandas with questionable names. This trilogy is timeless. The only things that really date it are a 2-second Matrix parody and the unfortunate lack of dual analog support throughout it. One thing I gotta mention before the end, though, are the differences between the original Black Label release and the Greatest Hits version, or the Platinum release if you're in PAL territory. Black Label editions are usually the most coveted, but this is one game where you really want to get the re-release, as the original apparently had a lot of glitches, and some of them were game-breaking. As in, gems not spawning, eggs not being able to be collected if you leave the level without collecting them the first time around. Yikes. Also, a lot of the music is missing in the original release, and the tracks are recycled to fill it out, so you gotta get the Greatest Hits edition. And unfortunately, the digital edition available for sale on the PlayStation Store is the original buggy version, so get it on disc. PS1 games will play on any model of the PS3, even the ones that aren't backwards compatible with the PS2. So for my final verdict, I find this game to be a bit of a mixed bag. The core gameplay the series is known for, and the new additions that actually work, are both great, and that comprises most of the game. But the bad parts that are there are just painful to slog through, despite the warm and nostalgic memories Spyro 3 has for me. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and feel like I earned a thumbs up, a new subscriber, and a ring of that there bell so you'll know when I post a new video. This has been a Leaky Faucet review. Thank you for watching, and y'all come back now, you hear?